Right now, you probably already know exactly what time you'll wake up tomorrow morning. No alarm, no boss, no Monday, just the sun and whatever his body actually needed that day. But there was no fridge, no store, and no plan B waiting. If today's hunt failed, tonight nobody ate. For almost 60 years, scientists told the world cavemen worked far less than you do today. New evidence disagrees. This is Nock. This is Ash. And this is what one full day of being human actually looked like. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what he had, and maybe what your own schedule quietly took from you. In 1966, an anthropologist named Marshall Sahlins stood up and made a claim that changed everything. He said hunter-gatherers like Nock's people worked just 12 to 19 hours a week to feed themselves, less than 2 hours a day. He called it the original affluent society, richer than you, while owning almost nothing. For decades, that single number traveled the world. It's probably the exact version of this story you already heard. It fed a whole idea that jobs, deadlines, and Mondays were the mistake, and cavemen had it figured out. But here's the wild part. He only counted the actual hunting, not everything that happened after it. Butchering the meat, cracking bones for marrow, scraping hides, hauling water. None of that ever made it into his count. Nock's day never started with a sound. It started with the cold creeping into the shelter. As night cools toward dawn, the human body naturally rises out of deep sleep on its own. No clock required. Researchers who studied modern hunter-gatherer groups found they slept about 6.5 hours most nights. That's close to what you get. The real difference isn't the hours. It's simply who decides when they end. There was no snooze button, but there was also no rush. He simply woke up once his body was truly done. Here's where that famous myth starts to crack. Later anthropologists timed the entire workday, not just the hunt. Active foraging alone ran roughly 4 to 6 hours a day. Then add the walking, the processing, the childcare. Some groups walked 8 kilometers or more just gathering food before a single tool got made that day. Most of the calories didn't even come from hunting. Gathered plants, roots, and small game fed the camp most days. Count every task, and some researchers now put the real total closer to 50 hours in a normal week. Yeah, that's basically your work week too, give or take. So why does his life still sound like a fantasy? Because the hours were genuinely never the point. It was what filled them, and exactly who was standing beside him. Nock never had a single job title. In one day, he might be a hunter, a healer, a toolmaker, and a father. You have one role, one desk, and one manager. He had 5 roles before lunchtime and no manager at all. His tasks shifted completely with the seasons. Fishing, hunting, gathering, building, almost never the exact same day twice. The idea of one lifelong career is astonishingly recent, barely a couple hundred years old in the whole human story. You might do the exact same task at the exact same desk for the next 30 years of your life. Variety was never a perk he had to negotiate for. It was simply what an ordinary Tuesday looked like. Quick one. If this is already messing with how you see your own Monday, drop a fire below. Keep going. Because the biggest difference was never really the work itself. It was exactly who was in charge of it. Nock's camp held maybe 20 to 30 people. Nobody outranked anybody in it, not even the very best hunter. You have a boss. He had a conversation instead. Big decisions were talked through, never simply handed down. If anyone got too proud of a big kill, the whole camp would tease him back down to size, deliberately. Most tools weren't even privately owned. Whoever needed the spear that morning simply carried the spear that morning. There was no performance review. No boss reading your messages at midnight. No one grading how you spend your day. If Nock felt tired, he simply rested. Nobody clocked it. Nobody cared. The work would still get done regardless. You get maybe 20 minutes for lunch if you're lucky, and a manager who notices you're 5 minutes late. Now here's the part that should scare you a little. Some days, Nock caught absolutely nothing at all. Big game hunts often failed more often than they succeeded. Some studies suggest well over half the attempts. That's exactly why gathering and fishing mattered so much. They were the steady backup a risky hunt could never guarantee. It didn't matter whose spear landed the kill. Whatever the camp caught that day was split among absolutely everyone. Children, elders, and the injured were fed first, every single time. That was the actual safety net. No paperwork required. You keep insurance paperwork and maybe a 6-month emergency fund, if you're careful. He simply had 30 people who fed him anyway. Even the oldest members of camp kept working, kept teaching, kept matching. There was no age where you simply became invisible. When the sun climbed to its highest, hottest point, the whole camp simply stopped moving. Altogether at once. Your own body still dips in alertness every afternoon. It's built into you too. He simply obeyed it, and you don't. No one ever asked permission to rest. Rest wasn't something earned. It was simply part of the day, like breathing. You eat lunch alone at your desk, thumb, scrolling a screen. He ate in a circle of people who truly knew him. When the work of the day was finally done, it didn't just end. It quietly turned into something else. Around the fire, the day's hunt became a story. The story became a lesson. The lesson became tomorrow's map. That kind of laughter, shared around a fire every single night, was doing something to their bodies too. This is the very same fire we told you about last time, the one that turned survival into meaning. You unwind alone, scrolling in cold blue light. He unwound by being fully, loudly, and warmly seen by people who mattered. So here's the actual truth, and it isn't quite the fairy tale you probably first heard about all this. Not probably worked about as many total hours as you do, maybe close to 50 a week in some seasons. But not one of those hours was spent away from the people he loved, doing something meaningless just to survive. He never once lived for the weekend. Every single ordinary day already was the whole entire point of everything. You count down every week toward Friday. He never once needed to. No part of his life was on hold, waiting. There was no far-off vacation he was saving himself for. The good part of life was never postponed. It was already happening. Same rough hours, same real effort, but a completely, fundamentally different relationship with his own single life. So, what did ancient humans do all day? Almost everything you already do. Just never, ever any of it alone. Same human, different world. If your job has been quietly stealing more than just your hours, drop a fire and tell me what you take back first. Next time, Knock gets badly hurt, with no hospital anywhere for another 40,000 years. Subscribe so you don't